What's up, investors? It's the Russian Dude and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war. Earlier this week, very important talks between Russia and Ukraine happened in Turkey, and I will summarize what was achieved. Spoiler alert, we finally have a progress which might bring the war to an end very soon. I will also mention the main goals of this war from the Russian side in accordance to the Ministry of Defense, and also other important events that happened in the world recently. This Tuesday, a very important talks between Russia and Ukraine happened in Istanbul, Turkey, and in this video we can see Russian and Ukrainian delegation arriving to the conference place. And these are the very first pictures from the talks in Turkey. The negotiations started with the president of Turkey, Recep Erdogan, addressing both nations. He said that continuing this war will bring no benefit to neither countries, and that both countries must work together towards achieving peace, and that both Russian and Ukrainian delegations have historical role today. And these are the main points that were achieved during these talks. First of all, Russia will no longer prevent Ukraine from joining the European Union. And the second thing is that Russia will no longer require the denazification of Ukraine. The next thing is that Russia will make everything possible to make in-person meeting between Putin and Zelensky to happen as soon as possible. And one of the most important agreements is that from now on, Russia will dramatically reduce the military activity in Chernihiv and Kiev region. But just so we're clear here, it does not mean that they're gonna stop fighting completely, it just means there's gonna be less gunshots and bombings. And now we have the main points which were achieved mainly thanks to Ukrainian side. First of all, Ukraine will no longer attempt to return Crimea as a part of its territories by war means, which basically means that Ukraine will not send its soldiers to Crimea for the next 15 years, and in case they still want to attempt to return Crimea, everything must be done through diplomatic measures. The second point that Ukrainian side mentioned is that Ukraine will no longer manufacture nor store weapons of mass destruction on its territory. In addition to that, Ukraine will no longer allow international military bases on its territory. The third thing is that Ukraine is ready to accept its neutral status for as long as there are safety guarantees. And safety guarantees means that in case there are military actions on the territory of Ukraine, the so-called country protectors are required to send weapons and military support to Ukraine, as well as close the airspace above the country. And so far there is no list of these so-called country protectors, but so far it is expected to be Germany, Israel, Italy, Canada, Poland and Turkey. Besides providing the security for neutral Ukraine, these countries are also supposed to help Ukraine to join the European Union as soon as possible. The talks between Russia and Ukraine was supposed to last for 2 days, this Tuesday and Wednesday, but they were really productive, that's why they were able to finish it in just 1 day. As a result, both sides received clear and well-defined requirements which were later presented to respective presidents Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelensky. And only after this we can expect both countries proceeding with the very first steps towards ending the war. Besides Russian and Ukrainian delegation, a Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich was also spotted today during talks, which is by the way a very important thing because both countries, Russia and Ukraine, selected him as a good representatives in the talks. And by the way, due to most recent poisoning of Roman Abramovich, the delegation of Ukraine was recommended not to eat, not to drink and even not to touch anything during these negotiations. And this video you can see regular pedestrians and volunteers who are cleaning up the streets of their own city, Kharkov, Ukraine. The member of Ukrainian delegation team, Dmitry Kuleba, proposes to prohibit the use of this symbol as a way to publicly support Russia's war on Ukraine. In the past, there were many attempts by Russian government officials to threaten Western countries with the use of nuclear weapons. And today, the press secretary of Russia, Dmitry Peskov, mentioned that not a single person in Kremlin is even taking into consideration the idea to use nuclear weapons. Besides that, Russia is not planning to invade NATO countries or bomb any of its territories. This is the drone footage from Mariupol, Ukraine. And in this video you can see the condition of government building in Nikolaev, Ukraine after it was hit by a Russian missile. The Minister of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, mentioned that the first stage of the military operation in Ukraine has been completed successfully. According to him, the first stage implies the destruction of the major part of the Ukrainian military forces. And then he says that Russia can now focus on the second stage of the military operation, which is the liberation of Donbas region. This drone footage shows the current state of the city of Irpin, Ukraine. A couple of days ago, the leaders of Lugansk mentioned that they are planning to do a referendum, which basically means asking people if they want to join Russia. And today, the leader of Donetsk, Denis Pushilin, Sweden, also mentioned that he will be asking his citizens whether they want to join Russia as well. This is just another video of Mariupol, Ukraine, completely destroyed by missile strikes. And in this video we can see the condition of the city of Kharkov, Ukraine. And in this picture we can see the conditions in which Ukrainian kids have to hide in the basements of their houses. And in this video we have a close-up view of missiles being launched. Since the Moscow Stock Exchange allowed trading of all of its companies, some individual stocks went as high as 70% in one day. Some Western media, such as Washington Post in this example, started criticizing the defense tactics of Ukraine. They basically say that some Ukrainian soldiers are hiding inside civilian buildings, which forces Russian army to bomb them as well. This is the video from one of the neighborhoods in Mariupol, Ukraine. The S&P rating agency expects that the GDP of Russia will decline by 8.5% in 2022. Last week, Meta, which includes Facebook and Instagram, was prohibited on the territory of Russia, and some Russian entrepreneurs already came up with Instagram equivalent called Rosgram, and this is how it looks like. This is the video from the city of Irpin, Ukraine. Since the use of Visa and MasterCard is now very limited inside Russia, some Asian countries became a very popular touristic destinations for some Russians. And the reason why would they go there is to open Visas and MasterCards, which technically means that since these cards are opened outside of Russia, you will be able to use them internationally. According to some surveys, the ban of Facebook and Instagram has absolutely no impact on around 47% of Russians. The Consulate General of Russia in Warsaw, Poland, has been sprayed with red paint. A couple of days ago, the Moscow Stock Exchange allowed trading of all of its companies. And as you can see here, some companies experienced around 30–40% growth in one single day. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, signed an order under which the disclosure on social media's the positions and movements of Ukrainian forces is now punishable by jail sentences up to 12 years. Around 49% of Russians started aggressively saving money since the implementation of sanctions. Russian currency ruble has been strengthening against US dollar for the last week. At the very peak it was approximately around 140 rubles for $1, and this very moment it is around 85 rubles. It has been estimated that since Meta is now banned in Russia, it can lose approximately 2 billion of revenue per year. Russia is now also working on counter-sanctions, which will make it harder for unfriendly countries to get visas. The representatives of G7 countries mentioned that they are not planning to buy Russian gas using Russian ruble. Explosions were seen in Russian city Belgorod, which is on the border with Ukraine. However, it was later reported that these were explosions on military warehouse and it was not the result of any missile strikes. A law has been proposed in Ukrainian parliament which says that Ukrainian men who left the country illegally can face up to 10 years in prison whenever they come back. It has been reported that some Russian entrepreneurs have applied to receive the ownership of some famous brands in Russia which left the country. Johnson & Johnson announced that they'll be leaving Russian market. Since the beginning of military operation in Ukraine, Russia has spent approximately $25 billion. The same money could have been used to give out 125 million pensions. Or besides pensions, this money could have been used to purchase 1,175,000,000 doses of insulin. Earlier this week, Russia announced that they'll be reducing their military presence in Kiev and Chernihiv. And indeed, we were able to see some reports from Ukrainian side which said that parts of Russian forces were already leaving Kiev. Following successful negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, the price for oil also started to go down. One of the longest flights now became even longer. Previously, the flight from New York to Hong Kong took approximately 15 hours, but now because the airspace above Russia is closed, it now takes approximately 16–17 hours. And by the way, if you like this bite-sized format of news reporting, you're more than welcome to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Feel free to share this video with your friends or anywhere else you want. Thank you so much for your attention, stay safe and see you tomorrow.